Hello, my name is Patrick Allen, and I'm an interviewer for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. And we have the privilege today of interviewing a veteran by the name of John M. Mecham. Mr. Mecham, thank you for doing this interview and thank you for your service. This program is conducted through the Cincinnati Hamilton County Public Library under the direction of Brian Powers. And our cameraman today is Mark Summers, who's a friend of mine. And he has done other camera work for us. And today is May the 8th, and we are at the Enon Public Library in Clark County, Ohio. John lives at 4303 Lone Wolf Avenue with a Springfield, Ohio mailing address. So, John, do you go by John or you go by Jack?
Go by Jack.
Okay, can we use that today?
Sure.
All right, Jack. Tell us, before we get into your military career, tell us about you and your family. When and where were you born?
I was born in 1934 in Peoria, Illinois.
What month and day, if you remember?
Yes, June the 27th.
In Peoria, Illinois?
Yes.
What was it about Peoria? Is that where your folks lived?
Yes.
What was your mother's name and your dad's name?
They were John and Loretta Mecham.
Do you know what your mother's maiden name was?
Marshall.
So you were born in '34. Do you have an approximate time when John and Loretta got married?
Well, it was probably about 20 years before that.
So now you were born in '34, so they got married somewhere around '32, but they were born about 20 years before you were born?
Yes.
Okay. And what did your dad do?
Well, he eventually got into, well, he was in the Transportation League because he played scratch golf and high average bowling. And he was offered a job by Vice President of the Chicago and Illinois Midland Railroad. He educated himself so he could do that. And eventually he became a vice president of the branch out of all of Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He was living in Milwaukee at the time.
So, do you remember how long they lived there in Peoria before they moved up to Wisconsin?
They moved up there shortly after I went into the service in 1954.
All right. How about your mom? Did she work outside the home anytime after you were born?
Yes.
What did she do?
She was a bookkeeper for Kay's Jewelry Store in Peoria.
All right. You said your dad educated himself so he could get that job with the railroad. What kind of education did he take?
Well, he had to get the background information relative to railroad operation.
All right. So what did he actually do for the railroad?
He was vice president in charge of the operations in all of Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
What kind of a railroad was it? Was it mostly
all freight?
All freight. Okay.
Yes.
And how long did he work for the railroad? Or do you know when he retired?
No, I don't know specifically, but he was with them, I know, at least 20 years.
Was your dad from Peoria originally?
Yes.
How about your mom?
She was from Springfield, Illinois. Yes.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have one brother and one sister.
And their names?
My sister's name is Jane Thompson.
Thomsen?
Yes.
And Jane is how old?
She is 88.
All right. And your brother?
Brother is Tom Mecham.
How old is he?
He's 77.
Okay. Now, both of them are still living?
Yes.
And where does Jane live?
They both live outside of Milwaukee.
And she's retired?
Yes.
What kind of things did she do to support herself and family?
Well, she was just a housewife.
Okay.
Her husband was the worker in the family.
What was her husband's name?
It was, oh geez.
That's a tough question. What did he do?
He was involved in sales.
Okay.
And he worked for many years in that capacity for insurance company.
Okay. And they had children?
Hank was his name, Henry.
Hank? Okay. Did they have children?
Yes.
How many did they have?
They had 3.
And how about Tom? Was he married?
Yes.
What was his wife's name? Or what is?
They're divorced now. They have been for many years. And I don't remember.
Okay. Did they have children?
Yes.
How many children did they have?
They had 3.
Is Tom retired?
Yes.
What did he do?
He was up in Minnesota, and he was with a think tank, you might say, doing planning.
Did either your brother or sister go to college?
No.
All right. All right. Did you live all of your young life there in Peoria?
Yes, until I went in the service.
Where did you go to grade school or elementary school?
Well, I started out, kindergarten was a public school, then I went to St. Philomena's for grade school, and then for high school I went to an all-boys Catholic high school called Spalding Institute.
S-P-A-U-L-D-I-N-G?
S-P-A-L-D-I-N-G.
S-P-A-L-D. And was that right there in Peoria?
Yes.
How many kids were in your classes?
In my high school class,
Yeah.
We had about 100.
And what were your teachers brothers or priests, or were they lay people?
Well, there were some brothers, there were priests, and there were some nuns.
Do you remember what order they were from? Were they Franciscan or Jesuits or?
They were Franciscan.
Franciscan.
Yeah.
All right, did you graduate from Spalding?
Yes.
When did you graduate?
1952.
While you're going to high school, did you work outside the home at all? Or?
Yes, I did.
And what kind of work did you do?
Well, it varied. I worked in a couple of theaters when I was a freshman.
What did you do there? Taking tickets or cleaning up or what?
No, I was an usher.
Okay. All right, what else?
And then when I was a sophomore in high school, I worked in a drugstore.
Doing what?
I was in charge of all the customer support up front.
All right.
And
answering questions and showing them where things were?
And taking their money,
okay.
Whatever it took up front.
All right.
And the pharmacist was the owner.
You remember the name of the pharmacy?
Kane's Drug, K-A-N-E.
Okay.
Yes.
And you did that a couple of years?
Just 1 year.
One? Okay.
And
then what'd you do?
then before my junior year in the summer, I worked at a large restaurant that had inside and outside service. I was in charge outside.
What'd you do? Did you seat people or did you
wait on
take
people.
orders? Okay,
Yes.
you're a waiter?
Yes.
All right, that was the summer. Then what?
And just to show you how large, we could park 300 cars.
Oh, wow.
And now this was in 1950. I was making more than $800 a month in tips. So it gives you an idea of the size of that we had, you know. And
You must have done a good job, and people liked what you did for them.
well, when I'd take their orders, I'd take it in, put it up, and I'd bring them out ice water.
Okay.
You know, things like that. So people that didn't ever tip started tipping.
Do you remember what your biggest tip ever was?
Yes, one time at Christmas, I had a gentleman, he had never tipped before. He gave me $20.
That's a big deal back in
Oh,
the 50s.
yes.
Holy cow, yeah.
You've been saving it up.
And then in the winter, they would close, and the owners went to Florida, but it was a couple, and they had to pay lease and they had to pay utilities. And I told them I thought if they stayed open that winter, they would make money. Well, 2 weeks later, they came to me and they said, "We've decided we're going to stay open this winter." And I said, "Well, you'll only miss one winter in Florida." They said, "No, we're going to Florida. You're going to run the restaurant."
And how old were you at that time?
I was 16.
What was the name of the restaurant?
Fritchie's.
How do you spell that?
Fritche.
Okay.
And I had to order all the food myself. I had to do everything. And during the week, we opened at 5 in the evening. We closed at noon or at midnight. And then on the weekend, we opened at 11 in the morning and closed at 1 in the morning. And
Did you do that during the school year in the
yes, yes.
winter? Where did you study?
I studied there at the restaurant.
Wow. So you get off at 1 o'clock, and then
Go home,
you had
sleep.
to clean up or what?
Well, we would clean up and get out of there pretty shortly, and then I would go home, get my sleep, get up the next morning, come over to the restaurant, get some things ready, go to school, and then after school I would go over and start getting things ready, and we'd open at 5 o'clock.
You were really a one-man band, weren't you?
Well, yes.
Did you have to do the hiring and firing?
Oh, yes. Yes,
Well, you're just a young kid at that time. What did the staff think of reporting to a guy 16 years old?
well, the first thing that, you know, we used to get free drinks, and then you paid for your food at a discount. And as soon as the owners left to go to Florida, they came to me and they said, "We get free food now?" And I said, "You get the same thing that they gave you."
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I was used to doing things. When I earned my allowance when I was 6 years old, I was responsible at our house for stoking the furnace with coal and taking out the clinkers at 6 years old.
So you had a coal-fired
Oh, yes.
heater.
Yes.
And you're 6 years old and you're taking care of that.
Yes.
And what was your allowance?
Oh, it wasn't very much, but
50 cents? Or?
oh no, it was more than that.
Included room and board.
Well, I can remember having a coal furnace when I was a kid too. And would you have to bank the furnace at night so that it would be ready to go the next morning?
Oh, I had to do the whole thing, yes.
Did you have, was your house right in town?
Yes. Mhm.
You had running water?
Yes.
Okay. So you graduate from high school in 1952.
Yes.
What did you do right after high school?
Well, another thing I might say, between my junior and senior year, I was one of 4 boys in Peoria, of the 5 high schools in Peoria, that went to Illinois Boys State.
All right.
Which was 2 weeks of learning how to run government.
All right.
And then in my senior year, I was the editor of the yearbook.
I'll tell you what, you were a busy lad by the time you graduated. So after graduation, what did you do?
After I graduated, Well, when I graduated, I got an appointment to a 4-year machinist apprentice course at Caterpillar Tractor Company, which was located there in Peoria. At that time, they employed 35,000 people.
What?
And the reason for that course was to train us to be future executives in the company.
Okay.
And we had, in the 4 years, we had to learn how to operate every machine Caterpillar had. We had to do our own setups, sharpen our own tools. We had to work in the foundry, become tool and die makers, pattern makers. And then we took college level courses. And then the last year you would go to Bradley University and get a degree. And their philosophy was, if you don't know how to do it, how can you lead others?
Uh-huh.
And I only got a year and a half of that.
Well, I was going to say, this is 1952.
Yes.
Korean War's going on.
Yes.
And were you drafted into the military?
Yes, I was.
When were you drafted?
Well, I was actually drafted in the end of 1953, but I went down and enlisted in the Air Force because I didn't want to crawl around foxholes. And the recruiter sent me over to take the test for aviation cadet. Now, that test didn't occur until February of '54.
Okay.
So in the meantime, I did what I had been doing while I was waiting.
With Caterpillar?
Yes.
Okay.
And then 106 of us took the test, 3 days of rigorous tests at Chanute Air Force Base.
Where was that?
In Illinois.
Okay.
And it doesn't exist anymore. And of the 106 of us, only 10 passed for pilot. It was, the program was for aviation cadets. And that program ended for pilots in 1961.
Well, you enlisted in the Air Force. What was it about the Air Force, other than not wanting to be in the Army,
that was it.
caused you to...
That was it.
Were you ever interested in airplanes?
I had some interest, but I had never flown an airplane.
Right.
And one of the things we had to do in the test, they had a stick in a very primitive area where you would fly an airplane on a computer. But I had no problem with that. But we had 9 civilian contract schools at that time, and once you finished pre-flight, which was a combination of basic training and OCS, Officer Candidate School, for 3 months down at Lackland.
Where's Lackland?
San Antonio, Texas. You went to various bases. The one I went to was in Bartow, Florida. It was a civilian contract school. And Bartow is not too far from Tampa.
Right.
And we were flying PA-18s to start with, which is a Super Cub with flaps. And then that was for 20 hours. Then we flew the T6 tail dragger at Texan. And my initial instructor was a former Blue Angel. He was a civilian.
Was this is this in your T6?
In both of those.
Oh, both?
Yes.
Okay.
And I had never flown an airplane, but he made flying so simple the way he would explain things. And he ended up soloing me in less than 3 hours. And today you'd never find that. They wouldn't allow it.
Well, back in those days, was that rather unusual?
Well, it was, but it was up to the instructor.
What was his name?
Bob Kane.
King, K-I-N?
Kane, K-A-N-E.
That was the same name, last name as your drugstore.
Yes.
But no relation.
No relation that I know of.
Well, how long were you at Bartow?
It was basically just under 6 months.
And did you fly anything besides the P-18 and the T-6?
No, that was it there.
Where'd you go then?
Then you could go single engine or multi-engine at that time. I went multi-engine and went to Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock, Texas.
Why did you choose multi?
I don't know. It's just what I decided to do. And
Well, how are you traveling? Once you took your test and passed, how did you get to Lackland, and how did you get to from Lackland to your base at Reese? Are you
Yes.
going by bus or train
No.
or car? Or?
No, what I did, first I went home to Peoria, and what I did was I flew on a Super Constellation from Tampa, Florida to Chicago Midway.
Okay.
And when I got on the plane, sat down, the stewardess asked me if, she said, "Did you just graduate from Bartow?" And I said, "How did you know?" And she said, "The haircut gave it away." But she said, her brother just graduated in my class.
Oh.
So when we got airborne, she came back and asked me if I'd like to go to the cockpit. And of course, that wasn't unusual in that day and age.
Yeah.
And I said, sure. So the captain had me get in the right seat and fly it
Really?
for about 45 minutes. And then we were cleared for approach. And I said, well, I'll go back to my seat. He said, no, make the approach. And he actually let me land it.
And you're flying a Constellation?
Yes,
And that's a 4-engine
right.
commercial plane.
Yes, full of passengers.
And you landed it?
Yes.
Had you ever landed a 4-engine plane before?
Nope.
How excited were you about doing that?
Yeah.
Or nervous or whatever?
No, I didn't tend to get nervous.
Well, that was something else. So then how did you get down to Reese?
I flew down there.
Would you fly down there?
Oh, commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, they would provide the transportation commercial to get us there.
So what did you do and how long were you at Reese?
Again, it was just under 6 months. We started out in a T-28, which wasn't multi-engine, but it was tricycle landing gear. So it transitioned us to the tricycle landing gear.
Okay.
And then the rest of the 200 hours we got in the B-25.
B-25 is the same plane that Jimmy Doolittle
Yes,
flew.
yes. And
So you had 200 hours in the B-25?
close to that, yeah, minus the 20 hours, about 180 hours.
So were you the pilot or were you another crew person?
No, in that, we were students. I was a pilot, yes.
Okay.
And
Did you have any problem flying a B-25?
no, and the two students at the table with me, and I had an excellent instructor, but the two of them, each one of them every day would have an excuse why he couldn't fly. So instead of flying a couple of days a week, I was flying 5 days a week. And I finished my training less than halfway through the program and immediately took my check ride with the military check pilot.
Uh-huh.
And once I did that, they waived all of the cadet formation requirements. So in the morning when it'd fall out for inspection, I slept in. If I wasn't flying, I had open post. I could go into town.
Uh-huh.
The only formation I had to meet was academics. And my instructor told me that they had 5 students that were marginal. And of course, when they go solo, there's 2 students. And theoretically, he said I was still a student until I graduated. So he asked me if I would fly with them and see if I could salvage them. And it was fun for me because there's no pressure on me now.
Uh-huh.
And I flew with the 5 of them and I salvaged all 5.
Oh, great. Great.
And because of that, I decided that I wanted to become an instructor. So the next assignment I chose was instructor pilot down at Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, in B-25s.
What was the name of the base?
Goodfellow.
Goodfellow?
And when I first started instructing there, I was 20 years old.
So you really progressed in a matter of less than really 2 years from the time you graduated high school.
Well, I think having two excellent instructors had a lot to do with that.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Now the B-25, that's a two engine plane.
Yes.
What was the normal crew? How many crewmen were on the plane?
Well, when we flew as students there, we had 2 students and an instructor.
Okay. Did they have any instruction for navigators or
No,
or gunners?
no, that was done at different bases.
Okay. So, how long were you at Goodfellow?
I spent 2.5 years.
So the Korean War is over by this time.
Oh, yes.
So, what'd you do after Goodfellow? 2.5 years. Did you stay in the Air Force?
Yes.
What'd you do?
I went down to Harlingen Air Force Base, and I was flying navigator students for their missions in the T-29.
What was that?
That was a twin-engine version of a passenger aircraft. The passenger aircraft had 40 seats.
All right. Where was Harlingen?
It's about 20 miles north of Brownsville, Texas, right on the Gulf.
So you're teaching navigation students?
No, I'm not teaching them, I'm just flying them.
You're flying them?
The navigators are teaching them,
Okay.
navigator instructors.
How long did you do that down at Harlingen?
I was down there from, let's see, 58 to 61.
Then where?
Then I went to Texas Tech to get my degree. Now, in order to be eligible, I had to have 1 year of college on my own, which I got when I was at Harlingen. And they would come up from Texas Southmost at Brownsville and teach at night.
Uh-huh.
And I got 1 year, and the math instructor was a 75-year-old man that was a genius at math, and he made math so simple you understood everything he said. So I took 18 hours of math in that 1 year, and then when I went to Texas Tech for electives, I took math because to me it was so simple after learning from him.
So how long did you go to Texas Tech? 3 years?
I ended up, when I went in, they gave me 27 months to get 4 years. And I was taking 24 hours a semester,
Wow, that's a good load.
18 hours in the summer. And I had to drive 2.5 hours over to Clovis, New Mexico to fly. And I had a wife and 2 kids.
Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. You're still active duty when you're at Texas Tech?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We were not allowed to wear a uniform.
Okay.
They didn't want us to stand out from the students.
All right. How'd you do grade-wise there at Texas Tech?
Well, they said they'd try that 24 hours one semester, and I had a 3.85. So they said, okay. If you got below a B in any subject with the Air Force, you went on probation in undergraduate.
All right, well, let's go back to, you mentioned that you were married at that time. When did you get married?
I got married when I was flying the B-25s at Goodfellow in 1956.
What's your wife's name?
Velma.
Velma?
Uh-huh.
V-E-L-M-A?
Yes.
And where did you and Velma get married?
At Abilene, Texas. She was living in Abilene.
How'd you meet Velma?
At a wedding of one of my friends.
Was that love at first sight?
Well, it was his wife to be invited her and introduced us.
Okay.
And 3 months later, we were married.
You latched on to her and you still got her too, don't you?
Well, she died of cancer now.
Oh, I'm sorry. When did she pass away?
It's been almost 7 years ago.
Oh, wow. I didn't notice that on your bio sheet.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And you're living there by yourself?
Yes.
You see your kids very often? They're way up in Milwaukee, but
Oh, no. My daughter, one of them lives about 1.5 miles from me,
okay.
and the other one lives over by Columbus.
All right. So you get a chance to see them
Oh, yes.
pretty often.
Yes.
All right. Okay. You're down there in, you're going to school in Texas Tech. You're also active duty. And how many kids do you have by that time?
We had 2 kids, both daughters.
Where were they born?
The first one was born at when we were at Goodfellow, San Angelo, Texas.
Okay.
The second one was born down in Harlingen.
Harlingen.
Yes.
What kind of accommodations? Did you have to live on base, or were you able to live in town?
No, we at both places we owned homes in town.
Okay.
But back then, we had a 3-bedroom house in San Angelo, a brand new house, and it was $13,000. So, different era.
Right, right. So when you went from Goodfellow down to Harlingen, you were able to sell your home, and
Yes.
then when you went from Harlingen, what did you do at Texas Tech?
As far as housing,
Yeah.
we owned a home.
Okay. So you're down at Texas Tech and you get your degree there. What are you doing next?
Then I got a 6-year commitment to research and development.
Where?
Well, the first base I went to was right here at Wright-Patterson.
Wright-Patterson is Dayton, Ohio, Fairborn, Dayton, Ohio area?
Yes, Dayton.
What did you do there?
I was a program manager in reconnaissance.
How long did you do that?
I did that for 2 years, and then I got my assignment to Vietnam.
Was your Vietnam assignment anything that you had volunteered for, or they just say, here's where your next assignment is?
No, they just told me I was going. And they told me I was going to be flying helicopters, and I questioned that because I had never ridden in a helicopter, and 4 of the aircraft that I had flown, they were using in Vietnam, fixed wing.
Okay.
And they said, don't knock it, it's a plush assignment hauling VIPs. And I said, well, if I'm hauling VIPs, why do I need a top secret clearance, which I had? And they said, oh, that's just a formality. Then I went to...
They also had a Brooklyn Bridge to sell you too.
I went to survival school.
Where?
In Washington State. And when I finished, I had to take 200 hours of martial arts training, one-on-one with the expert in 60 days. And I said, I don't need this to haul VIPs. And I didn't find out until I actually got over to Thailand that, well, first of all, when I went over there, everyone had to process through Saigon. My orders with the top secret gave me priority, and as soon as they saw that, they said, no, you're going right to your base. And they kicked someone off the flight to get me on it. And when I got over to the base, I found out that we were not only flying missions for the CIA primarily, but I was in charge. And I was a 32-year-old major. So I was responsible for planning and execution of every mission we flew during the time I was there, and then I flew 140 missions.
So you're not only planning, you're in the helicopter at the
Yes,
same time. Now, are you a pilot in the helicopter?
yes.
How many were on the helicopter with you on a mission?
We would have just 2 pilots and a crew chief.
What was the crew chief's duty?
Maintenance on the aircraft,
Okay.
whatever was necessary.
Do you have any gunners?
No, we didn't have. Once in a while, going north of Hanoi, we carried a 50 caliber in the door, but we did have a grenade launcher, portable, that we carried on board. But otherwise, it was just our personal weapons.
So where was your main base of operation in?
Udorn, UDORN, Royal Thai Air Force Base, RTAFB. And that was in northern Thailand. And the reason we were there was CIA headquarters was within 30 miles of that.
What were your accommodations like in Eudora?
We were, our squadron was pretty fortunate. We had rooms, with 2 in a room, and there would be 4 rooms and a porch and all of the latrine facilities, and our rooms were air conditioned. We were on base.
What were the accommodations? Were they wooden, or had they been built of concrete, or what were they?
No, they were specially built, but they were wooden. Yes.
Wood? How was the weather there?
Hot.
Temperature-wise?
Hot.
Yeah. Did you have any rainy seasons?
Oh yes, we had the monsoons, and most of the structures were up on stilts, because when the monsoons came through, there was a lot of standing water.
And were the stilts of any benefit in keeping the wildlife out of your accommodations?
We didn't have any problem with the wildlife on the base there.
Okay. Tell me about the food. What kind of food did you have there on the base?
Well, we had an officers club that had food, and it varied. You could go in and order off the menu. All the help in there was Thai.
I was going to ask you about who did the cooking and serving and
Yeah, it was Thais.
Thais.
And one of the things I did, General Bond, who was the commander in the local 713th headquarters, where I did my planning, because they had all the secure communications, he told me that they were having quite a problem there in northeast Thailand with medevac of civilians, not military. And it would take them sometimes 2 hours to get to a hotel or a hospital, and it would be bumpy roads. And so he asked me if there was anything we could do about that. And so I put 1 aircraft every night on alert with a crew, because we didn't fly any night missions. And their purpose was to provide medevac. And the first one I flew on, a 12-year-old girl had fallen on a stake in the ground, and it went completely through her chest.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
fortunately, they didn't try to extract it. They cut it off at the ground. And it took me about 10 minutes to get out there. And
By helicopter?
oh yes, oh yes.
Okay.
And picked her up, took her to the hospital. Took about 5 minutes instead of the 2 hours that it would take them. And the doctor met us at the door and started working on her. The next day, the doctor told me that 15 minutes later she'd have been dead. So, and she survived completely.
Oh, good. Good.
So we did that every night for most of my tour.
Well, how did you see to navigate at night?
Oh, we didn't have any problem with that.
You use your lights and all?
Oh yeah, we could use the lights in Thailand. If you flew missions in enemy territory, you couldn't do that. And we didn't have night vision goggles.
I'm going to put this in front of myself and show us some of the places where you were located. Give Mark a chance to focus in on this. Mark, do I need to move it anyway?
Turn just towards me a little bit. I think we can see it.
Okay, this is where Udorn was. Northern Thailand. And CIA headquarters was right up here by Laos. We flew missions normally along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which came down through here. But we also, I was the first one to go into Cambodia on missions. And
What was that mission?
it was to put in and take out native spies. They were trained to infiltrate the enemy and report on their moves to the CIA, not to us. And then we were the only ones that took helicopters north of Hanoi. And it was the same type of missions up there.
Now, you were in the 20th Squadron?
20th Helicopter Squadron, yes.
How many aircraft did you have?
We had 6. Five were camouflaged, 1 was black.
And which one did you fly?
I flew them all. It was whatever was available.
What was a black one called?
The Black Mariah.
Who named it that?
Oh, I don't know. It just kind of evolved. It got named while it was in rescue before we got it.
All right.
It spent 1 year in rescue there at Mecham, Phnom, which was a beam Udorn.
Was it always black?
When it went over there, it was silver.
And why'd they paint it black?
They couldn't have a silver aircraft. They had run out of camouflage paint, so they painted it black temporarily. Once it got dubbed the Black Mariah, nobody would let them repaint it.
So while we have the map up here, where were some of your other missions besides there in the Ho Chi Minh Trail, or was that always the Ho Chi Minh?
Most of them were along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Like I said, I was the first one to go into Cambodia because the trail went down through Cambodia also. And then we flew missions rarely, not too often, north of Hanoi.
Now, before we got on this interview, I was talking to you about a very critical pass on the Ho Chi Minh Trail that was very heavily defended. Can you show us approximately where that was?
Yes, the Mecham Pass was up here. And that was the main entrance into the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
What did they use the Ho Chi Minh Trail for? I hear a lot about that and you read a lot about it.
That's how they got their forces and their munitions, their everything they needed to fight the war down to the south.
Did they always use motorized vehicles to move equipment?
Most of it, yes. Now, originally the Ho Chi Minh Trail went down through South Vietnam. But once we got a concentration of troops, that was no longer feasible.
All right. Did they ever use water buffaloes for transportation?
No.
Did they use individuals to pack stuff down the trail?
Oh, yes. Yes, they would. When they were going down the trail, there would be hundreds of them. So these spies that we were putting in that were natives, they didn't stand out at all.
So if you're on a mission there on the trail, what was your mission on the trail?
To put those spies in so that the spies could infiltrate, move with the North Vietnamese, and report to the CIA on their moves.
Were you ever instrumental in programming any any missions to attack the Ho Chi Minh Trail?
No. No, we were not in the attack mode.
Okay. Now, you told me that you had, what, 6 helicopters in your...
Yes.
Now, but when they came over, there was more than that. There were other ones stationed along the coast.
Well, there were 14 that came over originally.
Okay.
And 4 of them were in South Vietnam, or the southern portion of South Vietnam. 4 were in the middle, and 4 were in the northern end of North Vietnam. And the other 2 were at Mecham Phanom in Thailand as the first long-range rescue helicopters, because rescue didn't have theirs configured yet with the aerial refueling and have their crews trained. So they did that for about a year, and then we inherited those 2 and the ones in central South Vietnam.
You've got on your bio that you were at Nha Trang, NHATRANG Air Base. Where was that?
That was in central South Vietnam. And
What did you do there?
well, we didn't do anything. For political reasons, we could not be permanent change of station in Thailand because of what we were doing. So we were on temporary duty from Nha Trang, and the orders, we had orders from that, and the commander at Nha Trang had no idea who we were. So it was just a ruse.
Everything was all hushy-hush, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
You weren't in Laos, you weren't in Cambodia,
No.
you weren't in Thailand.
And even the general where I did the planning in his headquarters at 713th, General Bond, he didn't know who we were. And he told me in his office one day, he said, "Jack, I'd ask you what you do, but I know you'd have to shoot me." And I said, "You got that right."
Was everybody in your squadron have classified status?
Oh, well, all of the pilots had to be top secret.
Okay.
Yes.
But then you have a crew chief going along.
Yes, we had a crew chief going along. Now, what we were supposed to do when we would brief only the pilots on the mission, and then the crew chief was just going along. But, I realized that if we had to go down in whatever area we were going to be in, they needed to know where they were, the crew chief.
Right.
And so once we got airborne, and we didn't go back to the same landing zone twice, because the enemy would be looking for you. So when we got airborne on the mission, I would call the crew chief up and tell him where we were going, show him. And that way he knew if he had to survive where he was going to be. And
was the jungle survivor training that you had gotten up in Washington, was that some consolation to you?
Well, we got that, plus we got jungle survival in the Philippines on the way over there.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
That was after survival school and on the way over to Vietnam.
For your first assignment in Vietnam, how long did you spend in the Philippines?
About a month. And that was jungle survival out there, and it was quite a thing. Part of it, the natives would try to catch us, and if they did, we had chits. They would get those chits, and that would give them free food.
Okay.
And what 3 of us stayed together, and we were trying to find a place to hide, and this older native kept following us, and the other 2 said, yeah, we got to do away with him. I said, no, we're not doing away with anybody.
No, wait a minute. Did they mean they had to get rid of him permanently?
Yes.
Kill him?
Yeah. I said, we're not doing away with anybody. So I went over and started talking to him. And
Did he speak English?
yes, enough that he could understand, you know. And he actually hid us right outside the native village in these high reeds. And we spent the night there. And what he wanted in return was the cigarettes out of our rations. And I said, well, you'll get them in the morning after this is all over.
So that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah. And when we got back, they said, you cheated. I said, no, we didn't. They did the same kind of thing in World War II, you know. You find a way to survive.
Right, right. All right. Well, so that was about a month over in the Philippines? All right. You made mention that you were a major at age 32. What was your rank as you're moving up? What did you start out?
Well, you start out as an aviation cadet,
Okay.
and then when we graduated from pilot training, you became a second lieutenant.
Okay.
And then a year and a half later, it was pretty much automatic. You made first lieutenant.
Okay.
And then from there, it was up to performance as far as captain and major.
So when did you become a captain?
I became a captain when I was at Texas Tech in 1962.
So did you get any further promotions from major?
No, what happened was when I came up for promotion, now I did not have a regular commission. And to stay in, you needed a regular commission, except that I took the tests, but I didn't have a degree at the time. I passed them, and so they gave me indefinite status, which meant 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And then they offered me regular toward the end in conjunction with being promoted to lieutenant colonel. And I refused it for the simple reason that I had a good offer from aerospace and upon my retirement. And if I accepted the regular commission, I couldn't go to work for any of those aerospace companies for at least 6 months.
Well, let's, before we get into your post-military career, I want to ask you some more about some of your missions. Did you take fire on any of your missions?
Rarely, because we didn't want to attract the enemy. Even, we used to use, like along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, many times we would use the strikes as diversion, and that would keep the enemy occupied. And if one of our strike forces got shot down, the A1Es that were with us as escort, they could locate their beepers, and we would finish the mission. We would go in and rescue them.
All right.
But the enemy was very sparse, so we weren't taking hits. The only time I took hits was north of Hanoi, when I rescued a gentleman up there.
So tell me about that.
Well, we had finished a mission. We were headed back 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and one of the F-105s got shot down, and his wingman called rescue control and said he had a good shoot on him. They needed to come up and get him. Well, they couldn't go north of Hanoi because they held the helicopters back for a while, so it was a suicide mission. And about 3 minutes later, I saw his parachute floating down. So I called the wingman and I said, I've got him in sight, I'll bring him in. And rescue control said, who are you? And I said, if you don't recognize the call sign, you don't have a need to know. And that made them mad. They said, well, you're not authorized to pick him up. I said, I don't need your authorization. In fact, I said, I'd appreciate it if you'd clear the air and let me work the problem. And when I saw I stayed back over the jungle so the enemy wouldn't know I was there. And when I saw...
Well, can't they hear you?
Oh, no. No,
What?
we're quiet.
Why can't they hear you? You got a helicopter.
Yeah, but we got 5 blades.
Well, explain that. We talked
Well,
about
we take a smaller bite out of the air. That's why you don't hear us. You know, a Huey with 2 blades is taking a big bite out of the air, and that's what you're hearing.
And you had 5 blades?
Yes.
So you're running silent, run deep almost.
Well, I mean, we weren't completely quiet, but we
Yeah.
were so quiet that they couldn't hear us when we were over the jungle, you know. And anyway,
So you tell these guys it's none of their business and you're going to take care of it.
right.
And what did you do?
Well, when I saw he was going to land just outside the northern outskirts of Hanoi in a field, I was on the ground about 2 seconds before he was, and it was in that Black Maria, and got him on board, and I was doing 200 by the time I got to the tree line at about 2 feet off the ground. And as I pulled up over the tree line, I could see a sheet of bullets. And it turned out they were quad ZPUs, 12,000 rounds a minute. And I could see something in the air, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so I made a break to the right, and we took over 60 hits. But a lot of damage to the aircraft, but no one on board got hit. And I was able to get back to safe territory in Laos.
All right. Now you explained to me that there was some protection for the motor, for the engine.
Yes.
What was the protection and what was the purpose of that?
Well, we had a shield in front of the engines because we would go into very small landing zones so the enemy wouldn't be looking for us. And a lot of times, because of the high density altitude, we would have to chop our way through trees coming out. And we don't want to ingest any of that or you're going to lose the engines.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you did some of that?
Yes,
And
all of us did.
tell me a little bit about the type of foliage that you could chop through, the trees and stuff.
Well, it would just be the limbs, but I have actually chopped tree limbs 8 inches in diameter. Did no damage.
With no damage to the blades.
No, because the leading edge is wrapped in stainless steel, and right behind the leading edge, inside, there's a rod the size of your thumb that goes through the outer 10 feet of the blade, and they're 30-foot blades. And then there's a pocket behind that, and that pocket was pressurized with nitrogen to make it stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire blade is only about that thick.
All right.
So it's like a big knife out there.
Uh-huh. So was that advantageous on a number of your missions? Or?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, besides this pilot that you rescued, did you have other rescue missions?
Yes, they're in Laos. And what happened when we would rescue someone, when we'd get back to the base in our unmarked helicopters, we had to land at the perimeter. The rescue helicopter would taxi out and we would put the rescued people on that. They would taxi in because the news media met them. And they didn't want us exposed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was another scam that we're pulling on the public in the newspapers.
Well, yes.
Thinking back on it, what was your most dangerous or most exciting trip for you, mission?
Well, I think that rescue in North Vietnam was probably the most exciting. But the squadron commander, who was a colonel, he went on 3 missions with me as my co-pilot.
Uh-huh.
And when we had an effectiveness report every year written on us. And he didn't write the report, but he endorsed it. And in his endorsement, he said that Major Mecham makes very dangerous missions routine. So
Good. So how many downed pilots do you think you rescued while you were
23.
there? 23?
Yes. And 4 of them were at one time It's a famous one called Pardo's Push. Two RF-4Cs were up over North Vietnam, and one of them got badly damaged, and they were going to have to eject. He put his tail hook down. The other one came up behind him and put that tail hook up against the windshield and pushed him to get him over into Laos.
Wow.
And then they all had to eject over there because they ran out of fuel pushing like that. And I picked all four of them up.
Did you transport any seriously wounded downed pilots?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. When? How did you find out you were going to be leaving Vietnam, and when was that?
Well, it was pretty much automatic. It was a year's assignment.
So, when did you get out of there then?
I got out in November of '67.
Where did you leave from?
What's that?
Where did you leave from?
Oh, we had to go over to Cam Ranh Bay in South Vietnam, and we had to process out over at Nha Trang, and they made us come over there 10 days before we rotated, and it took us about 30 minutes to process out. So the rest of the time, they were right across the road from the base was the beach, and so we'd go over on the beach.
So you had some beach time before you came home.
Right. And then I met my wife on R&R in Hawaii.
Okay, so you went from Cam Ranh Bay over to where?
Coming home?
Yeah.
Oh, we landed in California at base there.
But when did you go to Hawaii?
Oh, I went about a month before that.
You're still in Vietnam, but you get time to go over to Hawaii to see your wife?
Yes. Well, wherever you wanted to go on R&R that they had available, and you could not come back to the continental United States.
Okay.
Because they were afraid you wouldn't return, I think.
Where in Hawaii did you meet your wife?
We were in Oahu.
How long did you spend there?
We spent 2 weeks. Stayed in a hotel right on the beach, and we had special rates. We had a big bedroom and had a balcony overlooking the water, and it was $40 a night.
I wish you could get that now.
Yeah. It was right next door, almost to Fort DeRussy.
And that's the first time you'd seen her since when?
Since
Since you left Texas?
No. When I finished survival school, I got to see her for a short time before I went to jungle survival on my way over to Vietnam. But that was almost a year.
All right. So you go from Oahu, you come back to California?
No, we went back to Vietnam.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were on R&R.
Yes.
So then when you leave Cam Ranh Bay, you come back to the States?
Yes. By way of, we refueled in Tokyo, and it was a civilian contract flight.
Commercial plane?
Uh-huh.
What was it?
707, I think.
All right. And where did you land in the States?
We landed in California at the base there, and they told us, once you travel in the States, do not travel in uniform, because the news media had made us out to be baby killers, and we were very unpopular. So when I went in the airport at San Francisco in civvies, waiting for my plane, a GI came through in uniform, and a man on the balcony threw a bucket of urine on him. And that's the way they were treated. And a lot of the enlisted men that came back and got out of the service, they couldn't get jobs. They wouldn't hire them because of that, what the news media had done.
Mm-hmm. So from California, how long was it before you came back home?
Oh, as soon as I could get a flight, I came right on back.
All right. And where did you come back to? Where was home?
To Dayton. Family stayed here.
So did you have a house here in Dayton?
Yes.
And where was it?
It was down in Beaver Creek.
All right. So you told me you had aerospace companies wanting you, so that's why you didn't stay any
Yes.
longer. Who's the first one you worked for?
Well, the first one was a think tank called Lou Legion and Associates. Lou Legion, L-U-L-E-G-I-O-N.
And Associates?
Uh-huh.
And what was that a think tank about?
Well, we were doing studies and analysis for the Air Force. And it was right there at Dayton, at Wright Pat.
Okay. So you were a civilian contractor at the base.
Yes.
How long did you work for Lou Legion?
About a year, and it was a strange thing because one of the first assignments they had was the outfit that I had worked with there before I went over to Vietnam was, and then before I retired also, they had us as a subcontractor, and they were doing their work out of the source selection building on the base, which requires you to be escorted to get to your area so you don't, get any knowledge of anything else that's going on.
Uh-huh. What was that company?
Lou Legion.
Oh, that's still Lou Legion.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And it was a strange thing since they knew me at the base. They didn't require me to be escorted. And I didn't abuse that, but
Uh-huh.
and then they wanted me to go into the vault on the base and take top secret information from the 6-Day War in Israel to put it all together and make a story out of it and bring it out at the secret level. And I told the colonel, I said, I can't do that. And they said, why? I said, because the contract only calls for secret. I can't get into top secret.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, what do we have to do that? And I said, you got to alter the contract. And he said, well, how do we do that? I said, let me do it. So I wrote it up, gave it to his secretary. She typed it up, took it in to him to sign. And he said, what do we do now? And I said, I'll take care of it. So I walked it through the approval cycle, got it approved, and no one ever asked me if I was a contractor.
Oh, man. So then tell me what goes on.
And so I went in there and got the top secret data, put it together in a story, because it was all fragmented, and brought it out so they could use it.
Mm-hmm. So what's your next aerospace job?
Then I went to work for what they called ESI, Electrospace Systems, Inc.
Still at the base?
No.
Okay, where was that?
They were out of Texas. Richardson, Texas was the headquarters, and that was north of Dallas.
Did you have to move there?
No, they had me staying right there in Dayton
Okay.
and running the office there. And
Where was the office? Downtown Dayton, Beaver Creek, or still on the base?
no, it was actually out in the country, but it was up by Huber Heights.
All right.
And had a pretty good sized office, and I did that for about 15 years. And in the last 3 years of that, Chrysler bought us, and my boss was Lee Iacocca.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you met him?
Oh, yeah. He was a good boss. He he told me when we came on board, he said, "You've been very successful." He said, "I'm not going to do a thing to change that. If you need me, you know how to get in touch with me." And I always kept him up to speed, you know, no surprises.
Well, did you meet with him person to person very often?
Oh, not too often, no.
What kind of a guy was he?
Oh, he was very down to earth. Yeah, I enjoyed working with him.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that his expertise was in the automotive.
Right.
It was not in aviation. So
Well, he kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but he kind of saved Chrysler when he came out with the minivan.
yes, he did.
All right, so after 15 years with ESI, and the last 3 of which were with Chrysler, where'd you go?
I retired
How old were you at retirement?
because Raytheon bought us and they wanted me to move down to Texas, and I said no. I was getting too old for that.
Mm-hmm. How old were you?
Well, let's see, that would have been in the mid-90s, so I 60, over 60 years old. And
Well, you're born in 34,
Yeah.
so did you retire at 60 in 1994?
70, it would have been,
You
no,
were
60 years, yes.
Yeah. So
And-
somewhere around 1994,
No, 1996.
96?
And then I,
So Velma's still living at that time. What did you and Velma do?
well, she was just, a mother
Yeah.
at the time. But
Did you travel?
what's that?
Did you travel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been to 52 countries. And we had a travel trailer and then a motor home, and we camped in all 48 states.
Good.
Yeah. So, yes, we got around.
Now you had 2 children. The oldest is who?
Is Cynthia.
Cynthia. What's her last name?
Well, it's Romano Milner.
Okay. How old is Cynthia?
She's
66.
66, yeah.
Where she live?
She lives up at Columbus,
All right. Whereabouts in Columbus?
on the just outside the Eastern Bypass.
All right. I was born in Columbus. I lived out in Bexley.
No, this is
Further, oh shoot.
trying to think of the name of it.
Yeah. I'll think of it
It's,
later.
you know where you take the exit to go to the airport,
Yeah.
the interstate, and then you get on the bypass, and it was almost right there,
Okay.
on just outside the
So not too
bypass.
far from Gahanna.
No.
Gahanna's out the east part. So does Cynthia work outside the home?
She doesn't now, no.
What did she do?
She was in a company that was doing a lot of analysis for government work, and
She have children?
yes,
How many she have?
she had 3.
You remember their names?
Yeah, Nick Romano, and Chris Romano, and Joe Romano.
3 boys?
Uh-huh.
So they ought to be all adults by now?
Yes, Nick is a doctor.
MD?
Yes, he's a interventional radiologist.
Okay.
He does the surgeries, microsurgeries, and he's at Mont Carmel,
Okay.
and he's also on their board of directors.
What's Chris do?
Chris and his wife both are radiologists.
Okay. How about Joe?
Joe is part owner of a brewery up there, and he runs a lot of the operation.
All right. Then you've got your younger one is Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
Her last name?
Diviak.
Diviak.
Uh-huh.
And does Sharon have children?
Yes.
How many?
She had 4.
4. Are they all still living?
No, the oldest one, Nathan, and his last name's Cornettet, Cornetet. He was killed in a motorcycle operation
Oh, sorry to hear that.
here at Dayton. A guy hit him from the back out on the interstate.
Oh man, how old was he at the time? Just a
He
kid?
was- Well, no, he was about 40.
Sorry about that.
He served in Iraq.
Okay, what was he, Army?
Yes, he was a door gunner in an H-60.
So, so you lived through service in Iraq and you come home and you get killed on a motorcycle.
Right.
Well, is that ironic? What are her other kids?
She had then 3 girls, and the oldest one was Emily,
Okay.
and then the next one along was Kirsten, K-I-R.
Kirsten.
Uh-huh. And then the youngest one is Megan.
What did Mr. Diviak do?
He was at the time he was a welder in Dayton. He did welding for government programs.
Is he still working? He retired?
No, he's he now is retired. Yeah.
Okay. Did Sharon work outside the home?
Yes, she's still working.
What's she do?
She's she does government contracting out at the base.
Okay. Did Cynthia have a college education?
Yes,
Where'd she go to college?
Wright State.
How about Sharon?
No.
Well, let me,
Now I teach golf professionally.
oh, was that right?
Yeah, I played on the Air Force golf team and,
Ah, when did you do that?
when I was at Harlingen.
I never swung a club in my life, and I don't plan on undertaking
Well,
it, but where do you teach golf?
You don't have any source of frustration then.
Where do you teach golf?
Well, at different places we have to have a shelter because we teach rain or shine. So Young's was the primary place. Young's Dairy.
Young's Dairy,
They
just
have a-
north of Yellow Springs?
Yes, they have a driving range there
Okay.
and a shelter.
Okay.
And there's one down on Interstate 75, south of Dayton, up on the hill, on the west side of 75.
Oh, I know where that is.
Yeah, we've
Near
taught there.
Near Franklin, Ohio.
Yeah, yes, we've taught there, and up at Tip City, they have one in the city park that has a shelter.
Okay.
We've taught there. So,
Well,
and they're-
I'll let Mark ask you some questions after this, and he'll probably ask you about your golf because he's a golfer too.
Could use a lot of instruction too.
Well, let's.
oh, and I've also for almost 7 years, I've coached a girls' high school golf team at Tecumseh.
Okay. Is that Clark County?
Yes, it's up by
Outside of
New
Springfield?
Carlisle.
Okay. Well, let's. You've got various and sundry awards and ribbons. You got a Air Force Longevity Service Award ribbon with 4 bronze oak leaf clusters, a National Defense Service Medal with 1 bronze service star, Vietnam Service Medal with 2 bronze service stars, Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal. What's a AFM 300-3?
Air Force Manual.
And an Air Force Outstanding Unit Award. What were the bronze oak leaf clusters for?
Well, those are for periods of time, that you get one for each, generally 5 years,
Okay.
or 5 occurrences, whatever it might be.
Now, as far as your education went, you graduated from Texas Tech?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of a degree did you have?
Mechanical engineering.
BS in mechanical engineering?
Yes. And I got all my coursework for my master's, but I didn't get the master's there.
You got a presidential unit citation?
Yes.
And what was that for?
Oh, I don't remember now. That was the outfit that would get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have an Air Force Commendation Medal?
Yes.
What was that for?
I don't remember.
Just being a super good guy?
No, you had to accomplish something, but there were so many things that took place over that 20 years,
Well, you were quite a pilot. You have an air medal?
Oh, yes.
You have an air medal with 2 oak leaf clusters?
Yeah.
You got a DFC, Distinguished Flying Cross. Now tell me about that.
Well, I got that when I made that rescue up there.
You weren't supposed to make, but you made it anyway?
Right.
So who
See, it was very difficult for us to get awards because of what we were doing.
Because you weren't there.
That's right. And so, if you went too high, it got publicized too much.
Uh-huh.
So that was the...
Well, who determined that you were going to get the DFC?
I don't know. I have no idea who put it in for me. Somebody in the squadron. It had to be the squadron commander or...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got a Meritorious Service Medal?
Yes.
I tell you, you are quite a veteran. Before I turn it over to Mark, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you think that some relative or friend 30 years from now would like to know what you did or where you were?
No, can't think of anything.
Mark, you probably have some questions.
Well, I was interested in the Black Maria you were talking about.
Mariah.
I'm sorry, Black Maria had some post-Vietnam history here in this country as well. So
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when it came back to the States, it was in rescue, no longer black, in Arizona. And it was on temporary duty up at Las Vegas when the MGM Grand burned. And a lot of the people had to go to the roof because the fire was intermediate. And the Black Maria was the one that pulled them off the roof.
So yeah, I remember seeing those scenes. So that was the Black Maria we saw.
Yes,
Taking
not
people.
black at the time.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, it wasn't black.
Yeah.
But that was
Yeah.
the Black Maria.
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, I didn't really hear, Pat, I think you covered golf. You asked me to ask you about golf. You don't want to hear about my golf. Yeah, I might want to talk to you about that after we're done here. How long have you taught golf? Since the military days?
Oh, probably for the last 15 years.
Okay.
And there's 2 of us that teach, and the franchise was started out of Columbus by 2 PGA pros there that played on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And back in 2008, they challenged the 2 of us to a match with the 2 of them, with the stipulation that each of us get 3 students. They had to be legitimate students. Mm-hmm. And they would do the same thing. And then we played against each other at their country club up there in Columbus, and we skunked them.
Can you tell us who these 2 PGA pros were?
I don't remember their name now.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up, but they weren't big names,
Uh-huh. Yeah, my little brother actually was a golf pro, an instructor. He didn't compete at that level, but yeah. He worked with Jim Flick and.
Well, we had 3 of the students we had over those years, and they came very close to each other, in time. They had never played golf, and we taught them. And within 3 years, all three of them were playing on the tour.
So do you have like a clinic and it's like a freelance thing where you?
Well, people sign up, and then we used to take them out, and we'd get, we restricted it to about 12 at a time because there's just two of us. And we had over 450 students.
Wow.
Over the years.
And you're still doing that?
Yeah, I still do it. In fact, here recently, the commander of the American Legion up in New Carlisle, he had been bugging me to give him lessons. And he's left-handed, and he always sliced the ball, and he didn't hit it very far. So finally, I took him out to Young's Dairy, and I changed his grip. I did a number of things. And by the time we finished, he was hitting it long and straight. And the next day he had to play in an outing. Oh, and his handicap was 30. So he's shooting well over 100. And the next day he played in that outing. He called me afterwards. He said, I shot an 85.
Holy cow. It sounds like there might be hope for me.
So I enjoy it. It's, it's a lot of fun. And coaching the girls, one of the girls we had, she came to us as a freshman, had never played golf, but she had a beautiful swing. So I took her aside and taught her golf. And she graduated high school in 3 years, straight A, and she immediately was a sophomore in college. And on her own, she got all that. And the third year, her senior year, they played up at London, Ohio, and she shot even par, and she hit a drive over 300 yards.
Wow.
And since she was 8 years old, she's been a drag car racer.
No kidding.
Her parents do that. And since she was 12, she's been a national champion.
Race car?
Yes,
Wow.
drag
Drag
car.
racing, yeah.
And now she drives the big car, and she does her own maintenance on the car, and she wins quite a bit.
Wow. Do you have her number?
Her name is
No, I'm just kidding.
Lindsay Back.
Okay.
They live up by New Carlisle. And
Jeez.
most of the kids at the high school there where she went didn't even know she raced.
Wow.
No ego about her.
She did just.
Yeah, she
did
just
it.
And most of the girls that we coach up there are straight A students, and there's none of this.
Yeah.
We actually get together with the parents and the girls and go out and have dinner. It's more like a family thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if you can get the phones out of their hands, there's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff to do out there
Oh,
besides
yeah,
look at a screen all day.
Yeah. So I enjoy it. I have to stay active. I have never had an operation.
Wow.
I don't have any aches or pains. And my doctor told me last month when I saw him, my heart's that of a 30-year-old.
Super.
And I'll be 90 next month.
Wow.
So.
Well, Mark, do you have anything else?
Oh, no, I'm good.
I was
Yep.
going to ask you, did you see any effects of Agent Orange in the jungle?
No. They did some of that over there in Thailand around some of the bases, but we didn't get exposed to that, most of what was going on over in South Vietnam.
Okay.
We didn't fly any missions in South Vietnam.
All right. Well, I can't think of anything else to ask you. I want to thank you for this interview and thank you for your service.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.